Hey everyone, if you're watching this video, I'm going to be doing something about lines in fishing because I still get a ton of emails. And for a lot of you, you may fully know this information and when to apply what kind of line. But for a lot of emails that I get, people still get confused on the differences in lines between, mono or fluoro or braid and when to apply them. So I'm going to try to go through a simple breakdown to help you out if you're a beginner fisherman or you have a buddy who's a beginner fisherman and he could really use this information. So I'm going to start with probably what's the most popular and original kind of line we all started fishing with if you've been fishing a long time, and that would be monofilament. Now, monofilament lines are also known as nylons or copolymers. They're basically, they have tendencies to have a little more stretch than normal. New designs today really reduce that, like you have with the Fire, but the times that I really recommend using something like a nylon line or a monofilament line are topwater fishing, like open water topwaters. Carolina rigging, I like to use it. Sometimes in crankbait or jerkbait situations, I like to use it. And the thing that really makes it perfect in those situations is because it floats. Monofilament nylon lines tend to float. You don't have that extra resistance when you're trying to work a topwater. They have a little more stretch when you're cranking, or if you're cold water jerkbait fishing and you need that little bit more rise to your bait, they will affect the baits because of their buoyancy. The other thing that gets confused a lot would be fluorocarbon lines, like I've got here. And there's two main kinds of fluorocarbons. There's a mainline type of fluorocarbon, which I have right here, and this is FC Sniper. And then there's a leader fluorocarbon. And people say, well, why would you pay more for the leader fluorocarbon over the mainline? The way this stuff is designed, it's designed to be a little more relaxed on your spool and handle better. So it really doesn't have the same properties as the leader material. Leader materials are designed to have really high knot strength, really high impact resistance, okay, and great abrasion resistance, which is really what you want when you're running a braid mainline and you're running that 6 to 12 foot leader of fluorocarbon. But this stuff here, the reason it's so good as a mainline for a lot of things like crankbaiting and drop shotting, it's very sensitive, it's got lower stretch than monofilament, it's virtually invisible, it's got higher abrasion resistance as well. There's a lot of properties to fluorocarbon that make them very good. For me, Super FC Sniper seems to be the one that does the best all-around job in every situation, whether I'm using 18 to 25 pound flipping, or I'm using 6, 7, or 8 pound when I'm drop shotting or throwing a shaky head. And the last one is probably the one that's really changed the game quite a bit, and that would be braided lines, super lines. This is a standard Power Pro which has 8 carrier strands. There's also Super 8 Slick, which has that same 8 carrier strands, but it's wound under super high tension, giving it a more slick feel. Okay, so it's a great casting line, it's a little quieter in the guides. Also on the newer side of things, there's Max Quattro, which is a 4-strand carrier, so it's got 25% smaller diameter. But when is braid really effective? Braid is great when you're trying to feel stuff or you won't have an application where you need that zero stretch. So if I'm flipping anything or throwing stuff that I'm feeling the bottom and I need to detect those light bites or want to know the structure I'm on, I'm going to use braid. In a spinning situation, a lot of times I'm going to use a braid mainline, like a 10-pound test. And then I'm going to tear it down with, a 8, 10, 12, up to 17 or 18 or even 20-pound test fluorocarbon leader, depending on, zebra mussels and the bottom that I'm fishing. The other thing I'm going to use braid for is frogging. The reason in heavy, heavy grass and cover, I want that braided line because that zero stretch is going to help me drag that fish out of cover. So if I'm flipping jigs in cane or rice or in wood and nasty duck blinds, or I'm throwing a frog through rice or in the back of arrowheads, I want that braid. And I'm going to run 50 at a minimum, but 65 and oftentimes an 80-pound Max Quattro will be perfect. So those are really the 3 types of lines that I deal with on a daily basis, and I get the most emails about. So if you're wondering when to use what, just remember it's real simple. Monos float. They're great in a situation where cranking or Carolina rigging or throwing topwaters most predominantly. Fluorocarbon's great for leaders, but they're also great for most of the reaction baits, spinner baits, crankbaits, drop shot, finesse fishing, stuff like that is when fluorocarbons excel. And then braided lines are just for getting down and dirty and putting pressure on fish when you're fishing super heavy cover or you need to feel everything that's around. Hopefully that helps you guys out. That's my breakdown of the 3 kinds of lines that I use and how to apply them. Obviously everybody does things differently in fishing, but for me and where I fish and where I have fished, whether it's saltwater or freshwater, those are the applications, and hopefully it'll help someone out who likes to fish.